Welcome to our today's session, the QuarkXPress Masterclass training series. This is the second part. It's about typography, and well, we hope you've seen the first part. If you haven't, then go to our YouTube channel, QuarkXPress TV, and you can see the first one. Before we start, some housekeeping here. Today's session will run around 30 minutes. Maybe you're muted, so if you have questions, please ask your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll address them afterwards, or maybe my colleague can answer some questions already while I'm talking here. We will show you one marketing slide, sorry, but I think it's a very interesting slide for you, especially when you are interested in typography, which is the topic of this session here. And we also will answer the questions at the end, but please don't ask any tech support questions. I'll show you how you get those answers, but typically support questions are too individual to answer, so we're not going to answer them. And what we're going to do here in the masterclass is we're not going to repeat what you can read in the manual. We all assume that you have, or that you're all professionals. And we've noticed that I'm sure some of the things I'm showing you, you already know. Be glad, then you're already a master. Hopefully, like in the first session, that's the feedback we got, is that there were some tips and tricks that you guys didn't know, and that's really what we intended this class to be, to show you some things that you maybe haven't found or haven't seen yet. Okay, and that was already the introduction. Okay, so let's switch to QuarkXPress and have a look at some of the things that I'm going to show you today. First thing I want to do is I have this first line here, and maybe I just want to have this as a headline. So I'm doing a return here, and this headline of course should be bold. One thing I could do is I can go into my character tab up here, and well, I could also, for the ones of you that haven't used QuarkXPress 10 yet, what I can also do is, of course, I can use my same shortcut keys that I'm used to, Command-Shift-D, and I jump into that right tab, so into the character tab here, and my first field is being highlighted. So there's no modal dialogues anymore that obscure your screen. Of course, all shortcut keys are still the same, so when you're hitting a shortcut key, you can see that the right tab is being highlighted. So what I want to do here is I want to bold this to show that this is kind of a headline or a sub-headline. Well, can I safely do that? In this case, I can't. So if you look at the little bold button here, you can see there's a warning sign. That indicates that there's no font of the Metro Nova Pro installed that has a bold typeface. I don't have to look for the little warning signs. I can also go into Utilities, Usage, and see here that the Metro Nova Bold is actually being used wrong. I shouldn't do that. So what can I do? Maybe I have a different font, my Yalta Sans. And when I do that, you can see that the little warning sign is gone. This is because I have that font installed. So if I show you my font, you can see I have the Yalta Sans, and I also have a bold, which is being automatically taken. So I can safely press that bold button away and in again, because QuarkXPress is going to use the right font because it's available. So this is a great help already, looks better. But one thing I'm a bit surprised is I'm not sure whether Spanish is being hyphenated correctly. So I have the Spanish, but is it hyphenated Spay or Nish? As you probably know, we changed language attributes to be a character attribute, which means this word, or any word, just any character, can have an attribute to be a different language. In this case, it's German. Of course, this is not German, this is English. So when I switch to English, look what happens. The hyphenation of the word Spanish is actually different in German and in English. So what I need to do now is, unfortunately, because I set this up in German, I need to select all and search through everything and change that to German, which is okay because this is just a text chain, so I could just go through there. It's a very simple document I'm using here. But that's not really what I want to do, because I also have some style sheets, headlines, and body text that probably have that German language information in here. Luckily, QuarkXPress offers me a way of convert the whole project into one language. So if I want to do that, I'll just go to Utilities, Convert Project Language, and now I can convert all of the languages that I have in here to English US. I can say okay, and you can see that the hyphenation in the background has changed, and also all style sheets that contain character information are being converted to US English. Okay, so that's good already, and let's do some fun things here with our text. So what do the Spanish say? This is Quark. Well, that's one way of doing it. The other way is maybe I just, because the Quark logo has the name Quark in it, maybe that's a nice way of using a special font or special glyph that symbolizes the Quark logo. Well, since I don't have such a font, one way of doing that is to anchor an element in text, so that in this case I think it's a PNG, that this PNG or an EPS or PDF actually behaves as if it was a character. And I've seen many people not knowing that it's possible to anchor elements in QuarkXPress in text boxes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this picture box here and anchor that in the text so it flows with the text. The interesting thing is that, well, it's very easy to do. I just need to cut this. The interesting thing is that I'm in the content tool. So in this case, in the picture content tool. And if I cut this now, I'm just cutting the content, not the picture box. What I need is the picture box. So most QuarkXPress users actually now would switch to the item tool and then cut, which of course is one way, but this is taking too much time. I just want to be quicker. So what many people do not know is if I hit Command, Option, and X, I'm actually cutting the picture box, though I'm in content tool. And now I'm going to paste this in here as if it was a character. So I don't want the word Quark, so I have it highlighted. I just paste this and you can see it's now in here. It's like a glyph. Right? So if I have some text here, you can see that it's moving with the text. Can't select it. I can select it by maybe doing a marquee or drag so that I'm marking this. If I hold the Command key, of course I can select this element. And if I look at my home button here, home palette here, you can see that there are certain elements that I can change. So I can either align this with baseline down here, or I can align this with text accent. I probably want to have baseline here, and I want to move this down a bit. So maybe 0.5 millimeters. So you can see that now this has moved down a bit and looks much better. But what I'm not sure is there really a space in here or not? Is that a space? And is there a space between the dot and the Quark logo? So let's show invisibles. You probably all know that. Invisibles are non-printing characters, and they show me breaking or non-breaking spaces or zero width characters or hyphenations that I manually insert and this kind of thing. Often we get asked though, of course this is the space, I know that, but what's this? I have no idea what that is. Of course I could now reach out to my manual and read that. You know what, I don't even know where the manual is. It's somewhere in my hard disk, QuarkXPress installer, installed it somewhere. Much too time consuming. What I want to do is, I just want QuarkXPress to tell me what that special character is. Easy. I just go to Windows, open my glyph palette, and well, it's highlighted here, but it just tells me the Unicode value, which is not really helpful for me. So let's have a look. Maybe it's a special character. No, it's not. So then it must be a special character breaking. Yes, it is. You can see it's highlighted here. And if I mouse over and wait for the bubble help, then you can actually see that this is a punctuation space. So that's a really nice way of finding out what these special characters are. And of course, if I need this punctuation space a lot, I can move that down here into my favorite glyphs so that I can always use it again. And I've put here some other ones that I can never remember how to type, the R sign or the copyright sign, or maybe in this case the end space. So if I want to have an end space instead of the punctuation space, I just double click that and you can see that this is being inserted. Of course, I can go the typical way of inserting these special characters by just going to Utilities, Special, and then inserting the end space. But of course, I think it's much faster this way by building these these favorite glyphs that I can even share with colleagues. How do I do that? These favorites are saved in the glyph.pif, that is in the preference folder of QuarkXPress. So just grab that after you build the favorites and copy that and give it to a colleague who can put that then in his preference folder, her preference folder, and then they have the same favorite glyphs, which I think is very handy to when you work on the same document in a team here. Okay, so great. What else can we do with this document? One thing that I don't really like is this. If I go here to my line here that has my URL, then there's something wrong with this URL. Let's have a look what's wrong with the URL. Let's take 9 point. And you can see that the URL is saying quark.com/creativepro. If I revert that, you can see that unfortunately QuarkXPress is putting a hyphen in here because it thinks it's a word and thinks it's a good way of hyphenating it, which it is if it wasn't a URL. So what alternatives do I have to not have that hyphen happening? I could of course do a soft return, right? So if I do a soft return, great, it might be solved, or maybe I wouldn't do the soft return here, maybe I would do the soft return here. But that's a problem as soon as I start changing the font size. So if I maybe make that to 9 again, you can see, well, now it would be nice to have this actually fit in the same line. So a soft return is a bad idea. What else can I do? I can use a link shortener like Google or Bitly or something like that. Sure, but in this case, I want to have this to be readable. So what can I do to get rid of this and have something that is only breaking when there is not enough space in a line, a bit like a manual hyphenation. I've seen many customers not knowing that, though working with QuarkXPress for a long time, which is a conditional line break. So command, return, and you can see this little sign here. It's a bit like a manual hyphen, and now it's actually breaking. And if I do the test again, and I'll make my font size smaller again, I'll use 9 points again. You can see since it's fitting now, it actually doesn't break anymore. So great help when you have these very long lines or if you have something that should break at a certain point if it doesn't fit anymore. Okay, so what else? One thing I can see here is if I look at my document, I can actually see a text overflow, probably because I messed around with my document. I can see another one. So what do you normally do when you have these things? Well, since they're red, they're quite obvious to see. I can just go through my whole document and look for little red signs, right? What if maybe my background or anything else is pretty red? That's pretty hard to see then, so maybe I don't even find these little things. One thing that QuarkXPress has is it has a line check where you can put in a search criteria. So if I would just want to search for text box overflow, let's count. Oh, I actually have 2. Say OK. And then I just use my line check to go to the first line, and you can see it's being highlighted here. So you can see that my page number actually, oh yes, next box character, right? I have a little problem here. I don't want that in there, so I have it fixed. And then there was another one. It says 2, so I go to next line and make it smaller. You can see, oh yes, at the end, that's the one I already saw. So I'm going to just delete whatever is too long. That's always the easiest way to fix content. So now I'm good, and just to be sure, I can go back to line check, search criteria, I do a count 0. So I seem to be fine. So an actually really nice way of finding these overflowing boxes here. Okay, so far so good. So let's move on to the next file. In my next file, what I want to do is I want to show you some things about open type. Well, why do I need open type? One thing that often happens is, well, I have a quarter times a quarter. Is that just a half? It's not, so I need to do some fixes here. One thing is that I could do is to get a proper fraction here, I can just go to my style, type style, make fraction, and you can see now I created a fraction. But of course I have to do that every time when I create this. And let's make this a bit larger. It doesn't look so good anymore. So that's not really what I want to do. So what I want to do is I want QuarkXPress to automatically apply fractions. And the nice thing is that a lot of Pro fonts have actually fractions in there. And that's an open type feature. So if you look at my Metronova Pro here, if I click on the little O sign, you can see a list of features that this open type font offers. Everything that is not in brackets is actually a feature of the open type font. So it has small caps, tabular figures, lining figures, and it has fractions. So when I just select that as fractions, you can see this is properly formatted. And when I make this larger again, you can see it stays nice. So the one doesn't go outside of the text box. So really great to, sorry, one time too many to actually hit my return here, my undo. Okay, so next thing what I want to do is I have this a quarter times a quarter is just a half. I have this times symbol. Well, it's not really what I have. I probably want to have a plus sign in here so that this looks better. What if I want to have a minus sign? The interesting thing is it's not really easy to get a minus sign in here. So if I have a quarter times a quarter, just duplicate this line so you can see the difference. So a lot of people would just hit hyphen as a minus sign, right? So no, that's actually 0, right? So a quarter minus a quarter is 0. Is that really a minus sign? No, it's not. The minus sign is actually not very easy to reach via your keyboard. So how do I actually know how to find the minus sign in here? Again, this is a glyph. So I go into glyph, and I happen to remember that this has a special Unicode character. So in my palette here, I'm going to switch to Unicode value. I know it's 112212. Go there. There's the minus sign. And if I double click it, maybe I should add this into my favorites because I always forget what the minus sign is, what Unicode value it has. You can see there's the minus sign. That's the proper one. How can I tell that this is a minus sign? So have a look when I put a plus sign in here. It has the same width as the plus sign, and it also has the same width and strength as the plus sign. So if I just put the hyphen in here, you can see the hyphen is slightly higher, right, than my plus sign. It's actually a good feature to show the 8000% magnification. You can see there's a slight difference here, so it's nice to have this higher magnification possibility in QuarkXPress. And when I use the proper minus sign, you can see that this actually has the exact same height as the plus sign. So I think it's a great way of using this feature, the glyph palette, by just double clicking on my favorite glyphs for the minus sign, and I have the proper minus sign being inserted. Okay, next thing, what else do I want to show you? What is this element here? This is actually, I did indent the first line here a bit. I didn't do that with a special character. I just used that as an absolute value. So if I press Command Shift F, you can actually see first line 5 millimeters up here, right? Which is good, looks okay. What if I now select text and I just make this a bit larger? You can see that this doesn't look so good anymore. So I should really have a bit larger indent here for my first line. So how can I fix that? Well, I have to manually go in here and type in a higher value. Well, that's something I don't like, right? I want QuarkXPress to actually do that automatically for me. So if in this case, I just want maybe an M space, that's too much. Let's do 50%, right? That looks about the same like before. So 50% of an M space, then I'm using a relative value actually. And when I now enlarge my font size, you can see that since the M space of the font is also being enlarged, you can see that the indenting is also being enlarged. So that's something to maybe look at. So the next time when you define an indent here, why not choose a percentage of an M space? Okay, so what else can I show you in this file? One thing that I just told you, that you shouldn't use the style anymore for creating fractions, of course, isn't true when you have non-numeric fractions. So in this case, 1 divided by x. That is something where you actually have to do some manual interaction, because that is something the OpenType font wouldn't know. Because if I switch this now to fractions, you can see the x is not being made smaller. So that's something where you probably have to manually adjust that. But otherwise, I would never create manual fractions anymore. The nice thing that I haven't showed you is this also works automatically, right? So I don't need to afterwards apply this fraction style, my OpenType style. So I have fraction in here. And now when I type, instead of half, do 1 divided by 2, you can see that QuarkXPress is now actually doing this automatically while I type. And why not put that into my body text style sheet? You can see that I changed several things in here. Local formatting, my formatting is different, 24 points, and also inserted fractions. So let's just put that into my style sheet. Now I put this into my style sheet. So the next time I'm going to type this, tell us your half opinion, I apply body text. This is automatically applied, and I don't need to do that manually. So really great functionality and a great time saver to do this kind of stuff. Okay, what else? Let's go to my third file. What I have here is, a lot of people do not know about the difference of kerning and tracking, right? So QuarkXPress is helping you with a bubble help. So if I go into my, my measurement palette, what I can actually see is I can put my cursor in here, and let's say a lot of people say, I don't like how these two ones have a big space, much bigger than the 9 and the 1. Okay, so let's go to bubble help in my measurement palette. Kerning. This is kerning, right? Kerning is if I manually adjust the space between two characters, or two numbers in this case. When I select more text, right? So because maybe I want to save some space here, you can see this goes to 0 now, and this is tracking, right? If I change something here, and typically I don't do a lot of, I don't change a lot of tracking here, because you can really see that. So maybe 1, 2, or 3. So I'm holding the Option key here to do the increments of just 1. So if I want to save some space, and I'm saying, well, this is much too long, this text, let's just go for -3 in the whole text, and you can see I saved the line, right? That's the typical trick that people do. So that's the difference between kerning and tracking. I'm sure maybe you didn't know the right word, but of course you've used that. It's important because one thing that a lot of people don't know is my manual kerning that I just did here between the two ones. I can remove that. QuarkXPress can refine that and remove that. So if I go into style, I can actually say remove manual kerning. If I do that, you can see the two ones, they jump out again. So I have this really ugly space here. I can't do the same thing with the manual tracking. So that's something I actually need to find and then maybe apply. So I would ask now, is there any way to automate that? Is there a way that, you know, these two ones actually can look a bit nicer and don't have this big gap, this big space between each other? There probably is a solution, especially when you're using a pro font. So I really advise using more pro fonts. If you look at that, I have proportional figures here as a feature in my pro font. And if I select that, watch what the two ones are doing. They actually jump together and they look nice now. So what the OpenType font seems to do by default, and a lot of fonts seem to do by default, they use something tabular figures, so that in tables a 1 has the same space like a 0 or 9, which doesn't look nice in body text. So here OpenType fonts often offer that feature to have proportional figures. And when I do that or add that into my style sheet, I actually get much nicer results here. Okay, over to my fourth file. Still in OpenType. OpenType fonts, Pro fonts, can actually offer you a lot of functionality. One thing is I have this calligraphic font in here, and let's see what that offers. Not too much, right? It has fractions, it has ordinals. I have also standard ligatures here. So if I do that, not much changed. Let's see whether there's more ligatures in here. No, there's not more ligatures in here. So not much that I can do here with my file. Okay, so there's a small difference now between the two lines here, right? This one, I can see which one I checked. This one, I can see is not checked. Hardly any difference. Let's look at like a font that has a bit more in here. So my Zapfino. When I select something here, let's go for ligatures, right? Ooh, there was something nice happening here. I can see that the F after the P actually is changing. And also, if you look at the I, it's slightly changing. So this looks actually quite nice. Let's see what other ligatures we have in here. Don't have any other ligatures. We have swashes. Let's look at swashes. Whoa, much too much, right? This, I don't like this. No, but you can see what the OpenType font is doing. Actually, a lot of the vowels here, they actually have a longer swash, right? Or the N here have a longer swash. So I'm not sure that I want to use that, but of course I could use that even on a single swash. So maybe I like the end S here. So just for that one character, for that one glyph, I'm going to use a swash, and you can see the S is now looking much different. Let's have a look whether that O also has such a feature. And what I can do is I can again use my glyph palette to actually look at the swashes that it offers. So if I go to S, you can see, yes, I have something for S, but I don't have anything for O. I have something for L. No, I don't have anything for L. Do I have something for T? I have something for T, right? So a very nice way of also, again, finding swashes or any kind of special characters using the glyph palette. So what about sans serif? Does it make sense to use anything in here? Let's zoom in a bit when I have a sans serif font. Well, one thing that this Yalta Sans offers is standard ligatures, but are there really ligatures in sans serif in this font? Let's have a look. Yes, something moved, right? So let's just maybe select one line so you can see it better. Standard ligatures, where's the difference? Who can spot that? Might be difficult to see over the web, I hope not. So the FL and the FI you can see in here, they actually look different, right? If I deselect that, you can see there's a ligature and there's a non-ligature. So what happens now when I do that and I apply some tracking, right? So I go up here and I do a 1, 2, right? You can see that these ligatures break above 1, right? So if I want to have this a bit wider, maybe like this, so that my line is a bit wider, 3, the ligatures are being broken. Well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I think it's still fine to be a ligature, though I have applied some more space between the F and the L. If I want to do that, I'll just go to Preferences, and in Preferences, I go to Print Layout, Character, and here break above, let's say above 5, I'm breaking. I say OK, and you can see now the ligature is applied again, though my tracking is 3. So I said above 5, 4 still there, 5 is still there, and above 5 it's breaking again. So if you're doing this kind of effect and you still want ligatures to be applied, go into Preferences and change it there. Last thing in this file, I don't like this ampersand, how this looks like. Don't we have a nicer one within the font, an alternative? Again, I'll open my glyph palette and I switch my pop-up menu to, where is it? to stylistic alternates, yes, different ampersand in that font. So I'm changing that, and now I'm happy with what I've done. So really nice features in OpenType Pro fonts. Let's go to our last file here. What other effects do I have in OpenType fonts typically? One thing could be ordinals. So my footy green up here has actually ordinals. So when I select that, you can see I don't have second, a bit like Word. I have my second jumping up. Again, if I put that into my style sheet, let's put that into my style sheet. Next time I type that and I say maybe this is my first lesson, you can see they automatically jump up, or this is my third one. So you can see that I have certain ordinals in here that are automatically applied when I type, and when I continue, I actually are back in my typical font size. So again, an automation feature almost. OpenType Pro features can help you to automate certain functionality, almost like a style sheet, that you don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. And also Pro fonts will look, a lot of the typographic effects look better. I know that applying small caps, if you don't have a font containing small caps, you can do using the effects menu in here, and I'll just do small caps, right? But these are fake small caps. So QuarkXPress is simulating for small caps. If you don't have them in your font, maybe the only thing that you can do. Luckily in my Yalta Sans here, I do have small caps in here. So I'm going to choose the OpenType small caps feature, and now small caps are being applied the way the font designer envisioned them to be. So they look much nicer than the fake ones here. And as a last example, maybe to show you what we've already seen when I did this 911 adjustment, what if I want to have my numbers to be proportional? Then I just go to the proportional one. I don't use the tabular. You can see that basically the default in this font is tabular figures. So when I select that, nothing changes. But you can see the difference, the space that the one doesn't take now, or maybe you can see that in the 8 or the 7 also, that it's much wider when I have these proportional fonts. So I advise you, look at some Pro fonts, use them, play with the features. Not every font has all of the features. Like I said, when you see these brackets, like this font doesn't have ordinals. This Pro font here doesn't have typing alternates or small caps in here. So each font differs, but it's a nice way of automating anything that you're doing in QuarkXPress with fonts. Okay, so that's basically the demo for today. Let's just quickly go back to slides. So this is what we covered, and I also include a cheat sheet in the PowerPoint that you're going to receive after the session, along with the recording of this session here, that reminds you of the things that I've shown here. Here's the marketing slide I promised you, and in this case I think it's a very interesting marketing slide because it offers you 5 OpenType Pro fonts, so things that we've seen you need Pro fonts for a very attractive price. So when you upgrade to QuarkXPress 10 or buy QuarkXPress 10, you can actually choose to get the Go Pro bundle that includes Creative Pros features and tools, including 5 monotype OpenType fonts. And you can actually try everything we've seen here. And the best thing for existing QuarkXPress 10 users, a similar offer is available for you that also gives you all of the tools listed here, including QuarkXPress 9, except QuarkXPress 10, which you already own. And these fonts and all of the Pro fonts that I've used here are actually included in the bundle. So call our customer service. It's also available for customers that already have a commercial version of QuarkXPress 10, regardless when you bought. So now I open the panel for questions. Please ask your questions in the Q&A panel here. Reminder, if you need support, please don't ask it here. We can't answer it. It's too individual to answer. We only need to do some testing. So here's your support options. And well, let's start the Q&A.